Wednesday, everybody. Thank you all so much for tuning in to the PHNX Hockey Podcast, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Head to any Circle K Arizona location where you can get any size Polar Pop or Froster for just 79 cents now through September 3rd. As always, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. I'm Leah here with Petey. We got Danielle behind the Mac. We got Charles in the chat already.
Charles is here. There's the three of us. We should start doing the show from Charles's house. We could save some electricity. Just go hang out with Charles at his house.
I know, like, it feels like it's been longer than a week somehow that we last did this.
It does.
How are you?
Because we're all so busy.
It's been a busy week here at
work
PHNX.
stuff going on. I have house stuff going on. We just seem busy. And it seems like it's been a very long time since we've done this.
It does. And it's going to be a very long time till we do it again because I'm headed out of town for a few weeks. Yeah, because
you go bougie. I'm going to Europe. Like who in their 20s goes to Europe on vacation?
A lot of people.
Like, really?
I did, yeah. I spent 2 weeks in Europe.
A lot of people.
My kid's 25. He's going to Europe. The same time you're in Europe, he's in Europe. I say hi to him if you see him. I think it's a big place. But I'm in my 50s. We don't go there. When we're in our 20s, we went to Minneapolis.
Petey, you don't go anywhere. You haven't been on your honeymoon. You haven't been anywhere in like 15 years.
But that's what we do. Like, we went to Minneapolis. 3-hour car ride. Let's go to Minneapolis. Or we might go the other direction 3 hours and go to Winnipeg. But that's it. Europe. What the hell am I supposed to do? Like, we by the way, Charles, since it's just the three of us.
And Paul.
Oh, and Paul.
Please make yourself known in the chat.
Over the next few weeks, plan for chaos. Because...
Oh, boy. I'm not responsible for what goes on when
because
I'm
Leah won't be here. Craig clearly is going to be busy with the Cardinal football play. And there's not going to be much of a plan. Like, the likelihood of there being a show run and or a plan... So I'm not sure. We might just turn the microphone on and me and the magic behind the Mac will talk and go from there. So anyway, that's upcoming.
All right. Well, we got all the playful stuff out of the way because I called this on Twitter the doom and gloom episode. We're going to be a little bit negative. Last week was very positive and uplifting. Yep. This week, we're not necessarily negative. We're going to look back on some situation, hindsight's 2020, talk about where things went wrong with a number of situations. We're going to talk about Victor Söderström, and I know for a lot of Coyotes fans watching, like, that was a really frustrating draft pick and development path. We'll talk about what happened with him. This was, if you're in our Die Hard Only Discord, we kind of had a whole debate about what went wrong there, and Petey's going to give his opinions. We'll talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets, who just hired their third head coach in the span of 1 year, and whether or not it's coaching or some systemic issues there. And we'll obviously end things off by talking about Mat Ishbia's comments about hockey in the Valley. But first things first, the big news of the day, Petey, is Stan Bowman, who was just hired as general manager of the Edmonton Oilers. He was just reinstated by the NHL on July 1st and has a job by July 24th. Of course, he was kind of on the outs as being, part of that situation with Kyle Beach at the Chicago Blackhawks, the covered up sexual assault that occurred there. So, Petey, I'll throw it to you first. Your thoughts on this hiring?
It's interesting because the ban by the NHL was lifted earlier in July. And within a few weeks now, he has a job with the Edmonton Oilers, a team that went to the Stanley Cup Finals. It's not like he's going to some bottom feeder that really has to refuel. He's going to the Edmonton Oilers. And as we know, the Edmonton Oilers go as Connor McDavid goes. This hire to me is interesting. One, you've got all the turmoil that came along with him in the Chicago Blackhawks. And that is going to be a huge issue that's going to follow him around the rest of his life. It just is. But for me, and Craig's going to get into that side of it. Yes, we did have Craig coming in for a little appearance on that. But for me, it's about the hockey side. Here's my concern. He wins Stanley Cups. He does. His name's on the Stanley Cup. But when you go back and look at who drafted the players that became the players that won the Stanley Cups, he didn't draft Kane. He didn't draft Taves. he can't. When he takes over, it's nothing but salary cap problems. He RFA
Traded
problems.
Panarin.
The Panarin trade.
Traded for Seth Jones.
How'd that work out? He skipped the rebuild because of the 2020 bubble. He's chaos. And I think, and I'll say it right now, for all the Edmonton Oilers fans that I'm sure are listening, they're not going back to Stanley Cup final. They're not going to be in the Western final. Predicting it. The Edmonton Oilers will not be in the Western finals right now. Book it, mark it, clip the receipts right now. The Oilers will not be there. And I'm not blaming Stan Bowman for this, but he's not going to be a guy that helps them. Right now, they just got to roll out Draisaitl. His biggest job right now is trying to get Draisaitl re-signed. That's his biggest job. It's going to be hard because there's only so much money to go around. And I think that team, again, you've got to make Connor McDavid happy. His job is to make Connor McDavid happy. And I'm not sure that this is going to be a good fit for the Edmonton Oilers. I'm really surprised that they hired him. I am too. I don't.
I am and I'm not.
Well, I'm not surprised he got another job. I'm just surprised it's there. Like, you went with Kenny Holland, who's an old veteran, the old boys club network again that seems to be recycled. And Stan Bowman's the same thing. He's an old veteran guy. Just move on. Do something different. Find a different path, a different way to get things done. So the carousel continues, and I know our former Chicagoite, Chicagoan, has thoughts too, but I don't think it's a great fit. I know the Kyle Beach situation is part of it. I just think the hockey part of it for me goes even further, and I don't know if it's a great hockey fit.
Yeah, there seemed to be a lot of backlash on Twitter today as well, but we'll let Craig give his opinion. You know, Craig obviously grew up a Blackhawks fan and has been extremely outspoken on this whole situation with the Blackhawks and Kyle Beach. So let's throw it to Craig for his 2 cents.
What's up, PHNX hockey fans? I miss y'all as I head out to my first day of Cardinals training camp in Glendale. You probably think I'm here to talk about that other report, but actually, I'm here to talk about a report that I think has a lot more substance to it. The Edmonton Oilers' decision to hire Stan Bowman as their new general manager and executive vice president of hockey operations. I can't say I'm surprised by this because, as you probably all know by now, the NHL is an old white boys network. These guys get chances again and again and again. How Stan Bowman got one, I am still uncertain, however, because the allegations in the Kyle Beach scandal were just disgusting. Listen, there's a lot of speculation about what Stan Bowman knew and what he didn't know. Was this all John McDonough's fault? Should it have fallen on that sort of leadership? Does Bowman get a pass? They were right in the middle of a run for the Stanley Cup in 2010, their first cup in 49 years. I know it well as a Chicago fan. But here's the thing. In a leadership role, you have a responsibility to take these allegations seriously. And if your immediate supervisor doesn't do so, you should do so. There's no free pass for Stan Bowman here. Even if he didn't know the details, he should have done more. I reached out to my good friend Mark Lazarus, with whom I worked at The Athletic for a while, and here was his take. The allegations were brought to that meeting. What level of specificity is disputed, unsurprisingly, by the men in that room? I get that everybody assumed McDonough would handle it, but when Aldrich was still with the team in the days that followed, how does nobody follow up on it? Nobody pressed. Nobody went to HR. Nobody went to the police. Nobody went to the press. Nobody did a damn thing. And that's the damning thing here for Stan Bowman. Listen, I believe in second chances, but playing in the NHL or managing in the NHL is not a second chance. It's a privilege. Stan Bowman can still work. He can go out and find another job. He has an education. I don't believe he should be back in the NHL. Here's the other piece of this. He wasn't very good as a GM for the majority of his time in Chicago. We can talk about the botched RFA situation that they had in 2010, right after they won the Cup, when they failed to qualify key guys and had to move out contracts in order to get under the cap. We can talk about bad contracts going all the way back to Brian Bickle. We can talk about the litany of mistakes he made over the past 5-6 years of his tenure. The Nicholas Chalmers and Artemi Panarin trades, which just felt rushed, reactionary. The Jeremy Colleton hire, the aborted rebuild in 2021 after they won a series in the bubble in a season in which they wouldn't have made the playoffs. The Seth Jones trade. There's a long list, but that's not the main issue here. That's the undercard. Stan Bowman doesn't deserve another shot in the NHL because he failed to act in a very important situation.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, strong points by Craig. Absolutely. And one of the sentiments that I feel like I saw on Twitter today was, and it's the same thing, you know, we on this show, it feels like for the last 3 years, we've done the coaching carousel and the management carousel. It's like, aren't there other deserving people to get these opportunities? Like, I don't understand why we need to recycle through the same people again and again and again who like, and like Craig said, all for second chances, but could he have not done something else? He could still even be in hockey, but like, why are you given, there's 32 GM jobs in the league.
Yep.
Like, and it's the highest job of a NHL team you could possibly have, maybe, you know, president at hockey, whatever, but for the most part. And like, I just don't understand, was there not somebody else? And it's not even like he has this, like Craig said, it's not like he has this crazy, amazing track record where you're like, well, like, you know,
agreed.
It's just bizarre.
Like, you go back and look who he drafted, Leah. Like, again, I'm talking about Seabrook and Keith. Didn't draft any of those guys. His draft picks, first overall, Kevin Hayes, Mark McNeil, Teuvo Teravainen, good pick, didn't play for them. Ryan Hartman, like, they're Henry Jokiharju, like those guys, those are his draft picks. Like, really? Like, he had nothing to do with building what happened in Chicago. And to your point, where there has to be other people, one of the names that came up a lot was Keith Gretzky. And he's been their director of amateur scouting, the director of pro scouting. He has moved up the ranks to assistant GM in that organization. He's worked there for a very long time and been very successful. What does that look to that franchise now, to him, when he doesn't get that job? Well, we still want you here and we still like you, but you're not good enough for this. I thought that was a natural fit in the progression. He's part of the culture there. He's part of what's been going on. I thought that was the natural fit, was to go with Keith Gretzky. This one just surprises me. And it goes to your points back to, it's the Peter Chiarelli who's going to be next somewhere. It's the same old school, old thinking. I just think, to your point, there needs to be new, fresh people, not just there, but also in coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think since Craig filmed that and sent it to us, we have heard from Stan Bowman, or he spoke to the media, and he said about the Kyle Beach situation. He said, my response was inadequate back in 2010. I didn't handle things properly. I should have done more, and that's something I regret, and it's something I've had a chance to reflect on and try and learn from. And he also said that he called Kyle Beach last night to give him the heads up that he was being hired, and called it, quote, an encouraging conversation. So, you know, he also spoke about the fan reaction and said, I respect the way they feel. It's going to be my job to try and win them over. The goal is to try and do it through actions as opposed to what you're saying, et cetera. So,
yeah, I guess the ball's in his court.
Yeah.
And for the fans of the Edmonton Oilers, what's going to have to happen is what I said before, is you got to sign Draisaitl. And if you can't sign Draisaitl, you need to get the biggest haul you possibly can to get the return for Leon Draisaitl. The fan base there will forgive him if he performs, one, in the community, and it's not just how he does at his job, but he's going to have to say the right things in the community. He's going to have to do the right things and follow the rules the right way. And I think that Edmonton will hold him to that task. You can't hide in Edmonton if you're with a hockey team. So they will hold his feet to the fire there in Edmonton. So I believe that. And again, second chances. We all agree. How long do we see Joel Quenneville back in the league?
I don't know. Feels like that's going to be the next thing at least some point this year.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going to move on to talk about other things. But first, Petey, I did a road trip this weekend to Palm Springs.
I know, and I interrupted you. Sorry.
Yeah, Petey did call me on the drive.
Know.
You know, you got to stop and fuel up. Can't make it all the way there and back. I stopped, of course, at Circle K. We went in both ways, got snacks, drinks, and because I'm part of the inner circle, now I save 5 cents per gallon every time I go. It's 25 cents per gallon, your first 5 fill-ups, then it's 3 cents for a while.
And then
once you hit a certain threshold, it's 5 cents. I mean, just savings left and right. And Circle K, so reliable. They're wherever you need them, they're there for you. And if you're part of the inner circle, you get so many perks, and it's so easy. It's completely free. You just have to download the app. The app is actually phenomenal. And when you're at the pump, you just put in your phone number and it says, you're in the inner circle. Here's your savings. It's just that easy. So you can join the inner circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. Also on that drive, I was with my roommate, which is funny. Like, we live together, but we are 2 ships passing in the night often. We don't get to talk much. She said, yeah, so I'm applied to open a Desert Financial Credit Union account.
Come on.
Like, no word of a lie. I said, did you apply online to get the $200 bonus? Like, I felt like I was
you're like
on the show, but it was just crazy. So we talked about it. We were talking about all the perks, and she was saying, you know, they have an option where you can transfer your credit there and have 0% APR for 18 months. And, you know, just like, there's just so many perks and that I didn't even know about by Desert Financial. So she's in the process of opening an account there right now, which is awesome. We know Craig banks there. A lot of our diehards do. And Desert Financial, they really care about the community. And I think that's what's so important. And that's the reason why she's making the switch. She's at one of these, you know, big national banks right now. And it's like, sometimes you want to just be at a bank that has your best interest in mind. And that's what Desert Financial has. So you too can get a $200 bonus when you open a free checking account online. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. All right. Let's continue. We talked about missed draft picks.
Yes.
Let's stay on that theme.
Let's do that.
And we're going to talk about a guy who was drafted by the Arizona Coyotes.
Arizona? They used to have a hockey team
in
here.
2019, 11th overall. And that's Victor Söderström. And,
why are we talking about him now?
Well, it seems, you know, you look at the signings that Utah's done, he's still a guy who is out there, and Craig has reported that Utah is potentially exploring trades with him, or that he's even considering staying in Europe and playing there. And he just recently switched agencies. It just hasn't worked out for Victor Söderström. He's a guy, and you know, he's a defenseman. He's a little bit smaller. It takes longer to develop. So, you know, even the first few years, you can say, okay, there'll be time, but he was up here so many times. He had so many opportunities, and it just felt like it never clicked, Petey.
Yeah, it's funny because there was a lot of hype behind him when he came. He's a right-handed defenseman. You look at a guy, a European skater. He was supposed to be an offensive player. You could saw him being the right-handed matchup to play at the time with Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Oh, they're going to get along so well. What a pair. They can throw him out there as their offensive pair. He's going to help with the power play when Oliver moves on. He's a guy that's going to be that guy. And he wasn't. And it's when you see him play, I like Victor Söderström. I think he's a good kid. But when you're smaller, and Victor Söderström's a small guy, I don't even, what is he listed at? Do you know what he's listed at? 5'11", 184. I would be extremely surprised if he's 5'11", 184, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He's not a big, rugged defenseman. So if you're going to be a smaller of stature defenseman in this league, you have to bring something else. You're going to have to be incredibly quick on your feet. You're going to have to have an unbelievable offensive nose for the net. He's got to be able to bring that kind of an offensive upside that you see in a lot of these small defensemen across the league now, that they are out there. They're everywhere. But he didn't have that. He didn't have that breakaway speed. He didn't have the ability to get back to pucks quickly. He didn't have the puck skills to get the puck out of the zone quickly. He didn't bring that extra element. He never was. He never was able to develop those skills that they hoped he would. John Chayka loved him. Loved him. And I'm going to kind of skew over to some of John Chayka's stuff here in a minute, but I think this was a mistake. And you look at the next defenseman picked in that draft was Cam York. And Cam York right now for the Philadelphia Flyers is an everyday defenseman. That's where Söderström should have been by now. Söderström should have been an everyday defenseman in the National Hockey League if you're picked 11th overall by now.
Yes.
Did he miss his opportunity? Is his window closing? It's closing.
Feels
here.
like it is.
It's closed here. He's not going to be. He's not in the top 8 here. He's not in the. When I mean
Not here.
Tucson.
Still getting in the habit.
Sorry, apologize to the Utah Hockey Club. When I mean here, it's the old team that used to be in Arizona.
Yeah, that window closed in April.
Yeah, the window for him to be here closed.
Yeah,
actually, no, it was open when the Morellos were going to have the Roadrunners play here, but then that didn't happen.
Yes, we would have actually seen him play at that time. But no, I think this franchise, meaning the Utah Hockey Club, is going to move past Victor Söderström. I don't think there's a spot for him in the NHL right now. I just don't. And he may find it somewhere else. And for him to get that jump start and a new, fresh outlook on his career, it is time. It's time to move on from him. And you know what? Maybe in Europe he has a little more success. It's a bigger ice surface. He has a little bit more room, a little bit more time to make his decisions. And you know what? That's okay. It's okay. He's playing professional hockey, and they write him a paycheck to go out on the ice every day. So good on him. I just think that his experiment in Tucson and with the Utah is probably over.
He was a solid AHL player, though.
Very good.
Yeah.
And he played better there. And we saw that a lot, though. We saw that with Kyle Capobianco down in Tucson, where he was elite down in Tucson. He just couldn't translate.
He was an AHL All-Star,
yeah. Cam Dineen and all that. The list goes on and how some of those defensemen were really solid down there, and they just couldn't quite make the transition. And I really believe that Victor Söderström was one of those guys.
So this was the debate happening in our Discord the other day, was what happened with that? Because, Craig came in with the reports that he was potentially going to stay in Europe, that Utah was exploring trades with him. And you kind of look back at that draft, and you mentioned Cam York being the next defenseman drafted after him, but just some other names: Matt Boldy, Cole Caulfield, Alex Newhook, Peyton Krebs, Shane Pinto, Bobby Brink, and even Matthias Maccelli, drafted way later than him. That's a great, big handful of players that are everyday NHL players, and not just everyday players, but good players in this league. And they were all picked after him. And Petey, you were around in 2019.
I was.
What happened? Where did this all go wrong? Because we just talked about where it went wrong for Söderström now, but why was he put in this position in the first? Because if he's just a second round pick who didn't pan out, it's okay, I get it. But he's a 11th overall, excuse me. What happened?
See, I think this goes back to what we talked about with Craig the other day about the scouting and the development staff of this organization during that period of time. And when you look at, and we're going to talk about it, let's call it as it is. Well, let's go to John Chayka. John Chayka is a guy at the time, and John, I'm sure you're listening right now. At the time he's hired, he's 25. 25, might have been 26,
I think.
26 years old. He's hired as a general manager of the National Hockey League at 26. General manager of the National Hockey League. And let me tell you this.
Funny, we talk about giving people new opportunities. That might be a little too far on the other end of the spectrum.
Well, and truly, sincerely, it was. And John Chayka, I believe, when you look at Kyle Davidson, not Kyle Davidson. Who am I thinking of? Kyle Davidson? Mm-hmm. That went Pittsburgh, right?
Chicago.
Oh, Kyle Dubas. Oh. God, I'm so sorry. We do hockey once a week. I get
Kyle
distracted.
Davidson is the GM of the Blackhawks.
Yeah,
he's young. Yeah.
So Kyle Davidson, Dubas. Look at Dubas.
Davidson's 36.
So what Dubas was about that same age, and Dubas said, "I'm not ready. Not ready in Toronto." And he became assistant GM for a longer period of time, and he learned, and he had people around him. John Chayka came here, and I'm telling you, I was there in the room. So somebody can tell me it's bullshit, they're wrong, because I was there. The plan was for him. First of all, I was told when I said some things to people high up in the organization, there's no way that this is happening, right? You can't hire this kid. Absolutely no chance he's going to be the GM. No chance. It's not going to happen. Then it was, he is going to get hired, but they're going to get somebody that's been an experienced general manager of the NHL to be his right-hand man. Then that didn't happen. And then what happened is you get a guy at 25 who keeps reading the articles about how young and smart he is and starts believing how young and smart he is. I like John Chayka. I thought he always had time to listen to me, and I thought we had really good conversations. I like John. I think John's a very bright guy. I think he's very smart. I think he had too much too soon in a role he wasn't ready for. So when you look at his draft responsibilities, he tied every pick with a number, and it was all about analytics. It wasn't about the eye test. So the scouting staff shrunk. Everything went from eyes on the ground and boots on the ground to eyes on video. And everything had to go through John and Lindsay Hoffert. He was
ahead of COVID times.
Yeah, it was. Everything had to go through Lindsay Hoffert and John Chayka, and John Chayka's tight group of people that really like to agree with John Chayka. And what happened is you start to get so confident in what your numbers say that you forget to look at what everything else says. And the best example is his first draft, Clayton Keller and Jacob Chikrin get picked. He didn't have the job long enough. That's not his draft pick. He was the general manager.
A solid draft.
It was, and he did a good job, honestly, trading for Jacob Chikrin. That's the Pavel Datsyuk. There's a lot went on to that. He did a good job there, but those weren't his picks. He hadn't been there for the whole year. When you look at his first-round draft picks, P.O. Joseph, Barrett Hayton. Barrett Hayton's one. He loved Barrett Hayton. He had Barrett Hayton number 2 on his draft board. Number 2. Number 2, that's high. Yeah. And you look at some of the people after. I like Barrett Hayton. Barrett's a good number 3 center in the National Hockey League. But again, it goes to what you look at those draft picks. Then after that, it's Victor Söderström, which again, we can see what he did. Then you lose all your draft picks because you cheated, because you thought you were smarter than the rule book, and you thought you were going to outsmart everybody, and no one's going to notice, and you get whipped, and you lose your first 3 first-round picks, and then you pick Mitchell Miller, and we know how that ended up. Another mistake, and then he's done. So when you go back through his draft picks that were John Chayka, that were because of statistics and analytics, Matthias Michelli and Barrett Hayton are only two people playing. And Barrett Hayton has played, I know he's played 209 games, but a lot of those injuries, he's never become the player that I think was expected. So when you go back to a player like Victor Söderström, you have to entrust your scouts more and allow yourself to listen to other opinions and other voices. Because when you get locked in on somebody that you only see 2 or 3 times, this is what happens. And when I talk about the Utah's management team, when you talk about Bill Armstrong, Bill went the other way. Hired more scouts, got more people out on the road, put more money into scouting and development, and then you have to trust the people you put out there to do their job. And that's what was lacking at the Arizona Coyotes during that time period. There wasn't enough eyes on the ground. There weren't enough competing opinions to what was at the upper management opinion, and their opinion is the only opinion that mattered.
Yikes. And we all see how that played out on the ice, and just when things were on the up, bye-bye.
They gone.
They gone.
Do we always have to? I guess we always have to talk about it. It's kind of sad.
It's one of those things that comes
there.
up.
It's clearing.
It's there. Yeah, we'll see.
But he drafted Michelli, and we love Michelli. Scott White, Matthias Michelli is a hell of a hockey player, and he's going to do great things in this league. He's going to be an everyday player. So very good. What do I think of the Sergachev signing? I think we'll talk about Utah at some point. Probably not today.
Not today.
Not today, Scott.
I will mention one thing about Utah, the state, not the hockey team.
Okay.
Salt Lake City was officially awarded the 2032 Olympics, which when all the rumors of this started, like back in the early spring, and we heard Salt Lake City and thinking, why Salt Lake when Houston and Atlanta had all been in the conversation? Why Salt Lake, this much smaller city? And you started to realize there's some politics at play with the city of Salt Lake was bidding for the Winter Olympics for 2032, and there was some thought that a new arena could come into play because of that, and that would set them up well to acquire an NHL team, and now they have it. Is it 2034?
Yeah.
It's 2034. I apologize for saying 2032. But yeah,
but that's so far.
It's 10 years from now. So sure, you can build a brand new arena for the
because you're thinking 24 because this is summer though now, so it's gonna be winter.
Yeah, I can't add 4 that and 4 I don't do math, even though it's even years. I took the most basic math class you could possibly
at U of A.
Take. Yeah,
I love the U of A. I back the A.
Bear down.
Got some money down there.
Yeah, 2034. Still
2034.
I think I said 2032 because I thought it would be sooner. It's crazy how far out they plan it, but it is just.
So you think that had some influence?
I do.
I do too. So in taking that thought process, can the city of Phoenix try to get a Winter Olympics?
I thought you were going to say summer, and I was going to say...
No, summer is a hard no. That would not work.
Winter?
I
mean,
can we
snowball? Do some things at the snowball and Flagstaff?
Flagstaff, maybe?
I mean, you for hockey and like all of the... you just indoors.
Yeah, do it here.
You don't need to be outside.
Yeah. You could build an indoor speed skating track. Figure skating can be inside. Maybe that's the key to getting a hockey team back in the NHL is they need to get the Winter Olympics.
We should start this campaign.
I'm in.
Bring the Winter Olympics
to
Phoenix 2038.
Because you can't do summer. Yep, can't do summer. We all agree we can't do summer here. It's just too hot.
No, you simply couldn't.
So winter. I think I'm on board. I think we got an idea.
It just feels crazy because
Flagstaff though, like Olympic style hills. I don't know.
Salt Lake just had the Olympics in 2002.
Wow, that's right. That's Canada beat the U.S. Sidney Crosby.
No,
that wasn't that Sidney Crosby goal.
No, that was 2010 in Vancouver.
Oh,
2002. I was 6 years old, and my dad went and he brought me back.
Who won that one in 2002?
The little stuffed animals. I don't know. I was 6. I don't remember.
So this is really good. We're informative. And
I know I'm saying the wrong year. We're like, I don't know.
Who cares? We started drinking early. Who knows?
Listen, it's been a week.
No, but I think that's great. I think it's great for Utah. But again, what happens when those kind of events go to a city? You see the infrastructure in that city that can help propel that city for a very long time. You see it in Vancouver when you go there and see the transportation that was set up for the Olympics in Vancouver and how you can get to the outskirts from the downtown area to the outskirts of Vancouver now because of their transportation system. You look at the housing that was built that is now right by the hockey arena was all Olympic housing, and that clearly has translated to help the future and the infrastructures for a city like Vancouver. That is only going to help the infrastructure of what's going on in Salt Lake City for long term, and hopefully it helps the Salt Lake, the Utah Hockey Club, because I would think this will help them also and potentially a new building at some point.
By the way, Canada defeated U.S.
course
in
they
both men's and women's in 2002.
Of course,
so there you go.
See,
but U.S. made the final, so.
But we just say Canada, and you're probably right on most things. I got it.
Well, I can think of somewhere I'd want to be in October.
I don't know.
It's not a cold weather climate.
Somewhere warm. Do they play football there?
They do.
I think I know where this is
I
going.
would say.
What happened? Can we talk about something else? Not only do we lose a hockey team, we lost a hockey team. It's true. So we the show is whatever. There was a time when this company, All City Sports, entrusted me to read ads and try to generate revenue for this company. There was a day.
Well, you're gonna have to do it when I'm gone.
But since we've rebranded to the hockey show, I don't get to read ads.
Would you like to?
No, not really.
Okay. Well, we would like you to go to Miami this coming October as the Cardinals take on the Miami Dolphins. October 27th, October 25th to 28th is the dates
Right
of the road
for
trip.
Halloween.
By the way, there were some people asking a few months ago, are the Panthers or Lightning there? Because if they are, I would consider going on this trip. I looked it up. Panthers on the road, Lightning home. So the Lightning do play in that window. So you could, if you wanted to maybe build it in, you could check out a Lightning game on that road trip for you hockey fans. But tickets to this include round trip flights to Miami, charter bus airport transfers, a hotel stay, a welcome event, a meet and greet with Cardinals alumni, a tailgate, an all-inclusive tailgate, round trip transportation to the game, and your game ticket. So like, what
and
if
the ticket to the game?
You don't have to think about anything.
Nothing.
And Craig Morgan's going.
So if Craig Morgan is going, get on a different flight.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah, I will say that.
We should. I think that All City should look into that and sending Craig on a different flight.
I would agree.
Okay.
I would agree.
See if we can pull that off.
But we want you to go. And of course, if you are a PHNX diehard, you always get 20% off on events,
Fantastic.
20% off on
20%
merchandise.
off an event like that?
Yeah.
Like a big event like that?
That's huge.
That's huge.
Get free shirt or hat when you sign up. 20% off on
repping
merch. A lot of people rocking
Are we gonna
the
have
new
a hockey shirt?
There's a lot of people rocking the Valley collection in the office
Yeah.
this week. So that's really great to
Yes.
see. So many perks to becoming a diehard, as well as
Yes.
access to our Discord, where we are having debates like we were the other day that sparked the conversation
Yes.
for this show, as well as, we have some plans to do some Discord only discussions where maybe a little peek behind the curtain, some things that just for the diehards to know, if you will. So many perks to becoming a diehard. So we want you to become one today.
For sure.
Let's talk about the next failure.
I honestly forgot where we're going. So
The Columbus Blue Jackets.
Oh, that's another failure.
Perhaps, I don't know if a fan base, I talked about during the Stanley Cup run that I really identified with the Florida Panthers fan base. But now they want a Stanley Cup, so they're fine. Columbus has been through so much shit.
Yeah.
They have been a laughing stock, a joke. I'm not saying that they are.
They were, yeah.
They really struggled. They struggled to make Columbus seem attractive as a destination. There's just been so many issues, and most recently, they're on their third head coach in a year. And granted, one of that situation was Mike Babcock, where he didn't even make it to the first game. They made a head coaching change, but then just after 1 year, they fired their coach after a really disappointing season. After just before that, a couple of years ago, signing Johnny Gaudreau, which he thought, oh my God, the tides are going to finally turn. And now Columbus Blue Jackets hired Dean Evason, and the coaching carousel spins round and round again. Is it coaching? Or is it Columbus?
I think it's Columbus. I like this hire, and it's hard for me to say that I like a coaching hire because usually I don't. They made a huge mistake when they went with Babcock a year ago, and that was just a mess. And who didn't know that was dumb?
By the way, talk about a failure of a second chance.
Yeah,
it all comes together.
Because sometimes a leopard, as they say, cannot change his spots, as it were. And I think that's part of the problem. That was a big mistake, and everybody knew it. We all knew it, and we're not in those rooms. How does somebody sit in those rooms and go, "Hey, this is a great idea"? Dean Evason, to me, I like Dean Evason. I think I was surprised, honestly, that he got let go in Minnesota. I think it got to a point in Minnesota with they had a lot of stuff going on off the ice, and it became the personalities, it just didn't work anymore. And I think it was time for him to move on. I think he's going to do a better job in Columbus. I think he's one of those coaches. He's kind of like what we talk about with Andre Tournier, that he's one of those guys that can build relationships and communicate with players and get them to like him. But he also has the X's and O's part. He's been a player. So I think those things really help Dean Evason. I think he's going to do good there. I think players are going to like him. I think Johnny Hockey's going to take a step forward this year. I think he's really struggled, but I think you're going to see him get better. But at the end of the day, it's still Columbus. And sadly, the really good players, they had Artemi Panarin and Sergei Bobrovsky were on their team at one time.
That's insane to think about.
They were good. This was the playoff team. This was the team that was supposed to go places and build from where they were. And it's just hard to maintain when those guys want out. And when players of that stature want to get out of that market, it makes it a hard place to win. And it's unfortunate because it's a really good city, and it's a good city
I love
for
Columbus.
people with families.
There's a Tim Hortons attached to that arena.
It is. It's literally attached to the arena. It's a nice downtown. It's
nice
a nice
downtown.
area.
The practice rink is attached to the main rink.
Yes.
The fan base is incredible there. The Columbus fans are amazing.
Great.
Yeah.
It's a great place to play. And again, younger families, but with all of their missteps, and I blame Kukalainen for some of that too, their general manager, and John Davidson has to be held responsible at some point too for all of their coaching mistakes that they have made since John Tortorella left. And I think Columbus is still a mess. And I don't know if Dean Evason can clean it up in a year. I think they're in trouble. Patrick Laine wants out. Like, everybody wants out. Like, when you want out of an organization, it doesn't mean that organization isn't winning. That means they got more problems. And so I think that, again, you've got to look at the mirror. And I think Columbus they're going to have a hard time. I think this is a team that doesn't know who or what they are, but you're going to rarely hear this from me on the PHNX Hockey Show. I like this coaching hire. I like Dean Evason.
Do you think that he'll have a longer leash than Pascal Vincent did?
Yes.
It was just I was just surprised that he
was a stopgap that they needed him to fill in. They were panic mode after the Babcock thing blew up.
They had no time to get that done.
Yeah, after the Babcock thing blew up, I think he became the sacrificial lamb. I don't think he could have had success there, and especially when your top players go on, like Johnny Hockey just never really had the season that they needed him to have. So
they have some great prospects, though.
It's
Adam Fantilli, Juracek, I think.
They're still a couple years away, though. They're not a playoff team this year.
No. And it's just funny because you look at Columbus, and if you can take what Columbus has, great infrastructure, an arena, an amazing practice rink, and put it in a city like Phoenix.
With Phoenix.
That is attractive. And listen, let me just disclaimer. I love the city of Columbus. I love Columbus. I love the fans. I actually I've been to Columbus. I really like it.
Yes.
It actually feels like Southern Ontario.
I like it.
Yeah. Imagine though, just having those things here. And if that happened, this would still be the PHNX Coyotes show.
Agreed. If at one point they built the facilities like they did and had a community, the financial wherewithal to build a facility like they did in the middle of downtown with the practice rink and all of those things, this team would still be here.
Yep. But I'm hopeful for Columbus.
Can we blame Morello again? I've got to forget to blame Alex Morello on this show again. I want to try to blame him. I feel like we need to have
bingo. It's like we bring up the relocation.
But I want to blame Alex Morello every show.
Okay. So we can blame him.
Alex Morello Sr., it's your fault. There. Check that box.
But the one thing Columbus has going in its direction, first of all, it is on the up. There's great prospect, great fan base, great arena, like I already mentioned. There's this movement right now, the anti-Canada movement, where players don't want to play in Canada, and Columbus is a U.S. market. So who knows? We can see, and also there are some organizations that, you look back on, you're like, ugh, it's not a sexy, even Florida, for a long time, I was like, ugh, if you're just stuck in Florida with the Panthers and now it's a destination. Columbus could become that. And I thought that was going to happen when Johnny Gaudreau went there. I thought that would start the wave. Unfortunately, there were a lot of other barriers before that, but I'm hopeful for Columbus that they can eventually get there.
Yeah, and I think so. I think you're right. But when you look at some of these cities that struggle to attract free agents, the one thing that can turn that around is winning.
Exactly.
And Arizona, people can say what they want to about a hockey team in Arizona. Players like coming here. They did until this last ownership bubble blew up and it was a big mess.
But loved living here
loved
regardless.
Living here.
Yeah.
For sure. You could attract players to come here. You could attract good players to come here.
Yeah.
You look at those cities, and I'm sorry but for people that live in those cities, but Winnipeg and Edmonton, Columbus to some extent have difficulties until they do a couple of things. And one of them is have good facilities like Edmonton, and then the other one is start winning.
Yeah, and like have
Connor McDavid on your team.
So it's like,
because people want to go play with Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
So you can get free agents to go to Edmonton because they get to play with Connor McDavid, and you have a chance to try to go compete to win a Stanley Cup. So Columbus needs to do what they just did, drafted players like Adam Fantilli, and get that caliber of player. Then players are going to want to ultimately become free agents and live in Columbus, Ohio.
Well, let's talk about an arena here. This could also be a bingo square.
Let's talk about the arena.
Yeah.
Good.
It's been kind of quiet since Morello put his hands up and said, I'm done, walked away. We know that. And, we've been talking about, and you've almost said every single week on the show, I believe that it's going to happen. I believe hockey will return here. There's ownership groups. And one name that has been thrown around for months and months, but even before the Coyotes left, was Mat Ishbia. And he went on the record this week via Barry Bloom in a Sportico article, and we can pull up the quote here. But Mat Ishbia said, I'm definitely going to be part of the community, and if I can help bring hockey back, I'll look at that. It's definitely something I'm interested in. It's a 4-sport town. I'm disappointed we don't have a hockey team, but I understand what happened, and we're going to try to fix that one day. So Mat Ishbia, on the record, finally saying that he's interested in being part of that. That's something that we hadn't heard yet because he was being very mum when the Coyotes weren't for sale. He didn't want to get involved with that. But he also did say later on he wouldn't say if he was speaking to the NHL or not, and the NHL did not respond when asked to comment on this. So a lot of people this morning in our Discord on Twitter were really, really excited by this. And I could totally see why. You think, oh my God, like this could be the guy, this could be the savior, this could be the guy that helps bring it back. He's on the record saying it. But I just wanted to caution people to hold your horses a little bit because I truly believe this is how Mat Ishbia feels. But he can say it. It doesn't mean that he's going to do anything about it. There's also the situation with the lease at Footprint Center and how long that is until they could potentially explore new arena options that could potentially include an NHL and NBA combo. And on a more optimistic thought, just a reminder that he is not the end-all be-all only option. There could be other ownership groups.
Yeah, it's funny because what you said here and what he said is he'd like to help bring hockey back here. It doesn't mean he has to be the owner to bring hockey back here. I think there needs to be one thing I read into this was a partnership or, hey, I'm going to help. And I think it's important for the owner of a sports team that plays out of a facility that would be a partner with, and I don't mean business partner. I mean that they can get along in the same community, that you're not fighting an adversarial.
Yeah, like the Suns and Coyotes supporting each other rather than when Robert Sarver wanted nothing to do with the Coyotes.
And that's part of the reason Morello didn't have those partnerships with the community, with other sports teams. If he says that this is a 4-sport town and I want to help bring that back, and I will welcome it. Even if he's not part of the ownership group, but he feels that it benefits the city, I think that's a huge step. I do believe that the very, 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 very premature to say that this has anything to do with an actual real situation with Mat Ishbia. I don't think it's anything other than, hey, this is a big town, I support hockey. I don't think there's
which is great.
Great.
And I'm glad that he said that.
It's better than no, I'm the only game in town.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what the important takeaway is from this. I don't want to have people's expectations go, oh my gosh, he's working secretly behind the scenes right now to get a deal done, because he's not.
Yeah.
I don't think that he's actively pursuing an NHL team at this moment. No. I don't. That doesn't mean other people aren't. It just means he's not. I do still think there are people actively trying to put money together and trying to get this done the right way. The issue with that is it's going to take time, and the league is not going to breathe the word Phoenix or Arizona for a very long time.
Yeah.
The league wants this to quiet down.
Yeah.
And let this bad taste leave.
Settle.
Yeah. Dust settle, as it were. That's actually very good.
Yeah.
So I don't look for that anytime soon. They're not going to come out in the fall and say, hey, there's a new group. It's not coming. Just wait.
And Craig did tweet this morning, since many of you have asked me about the Ishbia expansion piece, slow your roll. He was asked about it, so he gave an answer, but nothing has changed on that front. There are no new developments. So I think we can say bottom line takeaway is Mat Ishbia has a great perspective on it. He wants to see hockey back here. Maybe he will even help support or maybe even 2 years from now, he might say, you know what, I really want to be serious about this.
Yeah.
But that is not what he's saying right now.
Right now.
So I'm sorry to once again, this is the damper episode.
Yes.
But that's what we have to say. So.
Yep. But that is a positive that he's saying that. And they're in that building till 2037 at a minimum, potentially with the ability to.
The 2034 Salt Lake City Olympics will already be done by then.
So we can have
not to be confused with the 2032 Summer Olympics.
So the lease expires in 37, just in time for the 38.
Oh, for the 38 Phoenix Winter Olympics.
Yep.
Perfect. It all comes together.
And I've also heard that basketball, they're looking at moving basketball to the Winter Olympics. No, they're not.
Can you imagine like ice basketball?
I'm in.
We might be on to something here.
I'll do anything. So but that is a positive, and I appreciate that a person of his stature in the community come out and say that publicly. So I think that's a good thing. I don't think that moves the needle quite yet. No,
it does not. Petey, is there anything else you want? This is our last live show together for like a month because
I do want to say one more thing though, because Scott White said, "Isn't there an empty arena in Glendale?" And there are empty, and even when they have events, they're empty. Sorry, Desert Diamond Arena. I don't even know what the hell's out there anymore. Who is out there?
Desert Diamond.
I know what the name of it, but is there
professional bull riding?
Bull riding's out there.
And I think the Arizona Rattlers.
Are the Rattlers there?
Boxing tournament
Rattlers there?
They used to have like monster trucks and stuff.
I saw the monster trucks. They drove over the hockey boards at one time. But the NHL has no appetite, zero appetite. They do not. No.
Just do it and do it right.
They're not going to Glendale.
Just do it right. When you do it, just do it right.
They're not going back to Glendale. They will not. The NHL will not be back until there's another new building in town. Period. Or a place for them to play, like Footprint Center.
Caleb said we got full contact kayak racing this year. Ice skip ball could happen. It's true. I don't know if you've seen the kayak racing where you can. No. So
is that real? Okay. I thought maybe Caleb
no.
said
So it's kayak racing, which they like usually always have, or they'll have time. But it's full contact. Like you can knock into the other people. You can try
in the Olympics.
Yes, in the Olympics.
Buddy.
And one of the requirements is you have to at one point do a 360 turn randomly. Like it is just so chaotic. I love it. I'm so excited.
Olympic chaos is Friday. I'm buckled in. I'm ready.
Guess what? I'll be in Paris during the Olympics.
Are you going to be in Paris during the Olympics?
I will. So I'm.
I'll be here in Arizona.
I'll be on our audio episode Friday.
Great.
And then I won't be on the show for a couple weeks. I'm going to Europe
the hell are we supposed to do?
On a 17-day trip. So I'm putting my hands up and saying I'm not responsible for anything that happens after this Friday.
That's fair.
I'll be back mid-August. But on that note, I do have to just point something out.
What?
And make kind of a significant announcement.
Okay.
This is my last show with Danielle as our producer. This is very sad. Danielle's last PHNX hockey show will be next Wednesday when I'm not here.
That's very sad.
And I'm very sad. You know, I can let Danielle explain what she's doing or not, or make it a surprise later.
Next week.
Yes,
we'll tease it because
Danielle is going to do something really great. So
we're going to need to fill time on the show next week. So let's save it.
But let me just say this: I'll give my speech. You can give yours next week, and then I'll give the floor to Danielle. But I just want to say, when Sean left, Sean was a part of this show for so long, and I was thinking, who could ever step into that role, because Sean was such a part of the show. And Danielle came, and it was a different situation because Sean was like a lifelong hockey fan, and Danielle was more of a baseball, football person and didn't really know about hockey. But the one thing that Danielle came to the show with was an extreme open mind to embrace hockey. And not only did you embrace hockey, but like embraced it and ran with it. Not only finding passion in hockey photography, which you slayed at, and I'm really sad the Coyotes left because I felt like we were just scratching the surface there. But also playing hockey, and it's been so freaking fun to talk about, like to just watch the evolution. Yeah. Not only as you as a hockey fan, but also as a producer here, and it's just been so like. Yes. You have been you were part of the PHNX Coyotes and PHNX hockey, and I do feel like even though I never thought it could be possible at the time, because you were just as much part of this family as Sean, if not more. So I'm grateful for you, and I'm gonna miss you producing the show.
I'm gonna miss you too.
And you've become a great friend.
You mean a lot to me.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna cry. This is gonna be like 4 times I've cried on this show. I hate it because I'm definitely gonna cry next week.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
But yeah, you mean a lot to me. You become one of my best friends.
Oh, well, thank you.
And it was really scary coming onto the show. One, because I didn't know anything about hockey. 2, having to replace Sean was really scary. But you, of all people, really embraced me, and it means a lot.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and it's true, Danielle. I'll say it. The first couple of shows, it took her a little while to find her footing, meaning that I don't know if she felt she could be a fit here. And it took a while to find that sense of community. And then, like you said, now the hockey community is special.
Yeah, it is.
And the hockey community
and Danielle, you're a part of it. Like, there's no getting out of it.
You're in now.
Yeah.
And you're a part of the hockey community. This wonderful Arizona hockey community. And elsewhere. It's not just Arizona.
Caleb, hockey pod producers, just like the team.
I don't. What the fuck is it? At some point, is it us?
Yeah, I mean,
like how many producers have we been through? Good Lord.
I can say with 100% confidence it is not you.
Oh,
thank you.
Well,
that's she has to say it because it's on air.
Yeah,
but.
if anybody's got any ideas that are diehards, go ahead and drop those in the Discord for the next 2 weeks because I have no idea what to do.
Please help, Petey.
And just do it before Wednesday at 11 because we could tune on the microphones and have nothing to talk. I'll talk because I like to do that.
All right. Well, that's a wrap on today. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button on this video, the little thumbs up. If you're listening on audio, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss our weekly audio-only episodes. Last week, we talked with ASU assistant coach Mike Corbett. If you missed that, go back and listen. It was a really good interview. Got me really excited about Sun Devil hockey. We'll have an audio episode this Friday before I go. So just make sure you're subscribed to PHNX Hockey and PHNX Sports on YouTube. Petey did work for the team and PHNX, only common thread.
the producers leaving and the team leaving is kind of off, but
yeah,
I'm the only common thread.
Maybe it's you.
Maybe it is me.
Maybe it is.
Thanks,
you.
Caleb. Appreciate it.
But you can follow us all on Twitter at SPetersHockey, at Leah Merrill, at Abraca Danielle. You can follow the show on Twitter at PHNX_hockey. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.